So, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of ASAP Conversations, and thank you for joining in. Today, we are glad to have with us from our Malaysia team, Fara. And Fara, I would just like to, without further ado, ask you to introduce yourself and a bit about the work you do, and about what has been going on.
Yeah, okay. So, hi, my name is Fara Rom, and I am from FYIKL, for Youth Initiative Kuala Lumpur. So it's basically a creative outlet for young people to express sexual reproductive health and rights messaging. And I think this couple of years we've been focusing on the issue of abortion. So we had our art exhibition last year, which is fantastic. It was quite a success for the first timer that we are.
You also saw the pictures and videos, and it just looked so positive and instead of the idea that we usually associate with abortion and the whole gloomy aspect of it. So that was just a very refreshing sight to see in its first place. So just to move on to our next question, I wanted to ask that according to what you've seen in your experiences of working with RAM or FIKL, so how has it been in terms of what is the reaction to abortion in Malaysia? Or contraceptives, for instance, and safe abortion. So what do people like? What is the general attitude towards that? Also, is it legally available? And what are the restrictions that women have to face to access the abortion service? If you can give a bit, and this is before the pandemic hit, to just get a general idea of how it was even before COVID hit us. Yeah.
Right. So I think, in a general opinion, I think it's almost similar with other, Asian countries on how abortion is perceived, but mostly in Malaysia because it's predominantly Muslim, Muslim majority country. So there's a lot of conversation on whether it's allowed in the religion, and there's a lot of conversation in religion itself about it. But I think also interestingly, actually, it is the misinterpretation of religion also plays a part in it. And as a whole, even outside of the Islamic context, even in general, people still feel like abortion is something wrong that it should be like the last option in everything. Yeah, and it also appears when we had a workshop recently, like we talked to, some of the people, and they say about this is something that is sensitive. It doesn't matter if it's legal or safe, but it's still you can't make it open. You can't really discuss it openly. So that's basically what the general perception of abortion is. It's it's not allowed. It's haram. It's you shouldn't go through it if you're not in relationship. Yeah.
If a woman wants an abortion, if there's an unintended pregnancy, so does she have any option? Is there any available option for her?
Right. So in the Malaysian context, it's really interesting because there is no such thing if you want to have an abortion in the governmental facilities. So it is basically, it's really, really strict. Although there are a termination of pregnancy guideline that has been given to the doctors, there are still misconception among the doctors themselves. So that's also kind of strengthening the stigma on, people reaching out to get a safe abortion. But mostly if they want to get safe abortion, they will go to clinics, private clinics mostly, and of course, it costs a lot if compared to, dormitory facilities. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine how difficult it would be for unmarried young women to, think of an unintended pregnancy in the first place. So what is the, and I was just reading back, and it's been a big issue that Malaysia has sort of also been dealing with is the rising cases of teen pregnancies and eventually which leads to baby dumping as well. So that has been sort of a big issue that Malaysia is trying to get over, find a solution to. What do you think about that, and why do you think that sort of happens?
I think there are so much things that we need to do as a whole, because even in now, after 63 years of independence, We have, Minister of Women, we have National Population Development Board, we have the agency that take care of family planning, but it restricts the services to only married couples. So when it comes to unintended pregnancies, especially in teenagers, they know what the solutions are, but they still are, I'm not sure what they're thinking, but they still are in denial on these are actually the concrete solution on what we can do to avoid teenage pregnancies. They always look it as something that is encouraging sexual intercourse outside of marriage. And, the problem continues with enabling child marriage. They feel if someone has unintended pregnancy, they should get married. So there is still this kind of thought process in the government itself, people in the government. Although some of them are supportive, but it is dominated by those who aren't for the idea, especially on comprehensive sexuality education, like the National Population Development Board. They openly said they teach sex education, but there are two types of sex education for them. One of it is purely abstinence. They don't really talk about family planning or how to avoid unintended pregnancies. But the second module is directed towards those who are sexually active, and it's really, really mind-boggling that how can you assume someone is sexually active or not? Is it just because it is reported that they are sexually active, or is it because they assume because these kids seems wild in class, so maybe they need to have sex education, the second module of sex education in school. So it's really, really interesting. So because we had this discussion, I was asking the person who are heading the department itself, but then the answer is still that, like, they say it's for a specific type of group, and I'm like, are you actually categorizing these kids? You're saying they are bad, they are good, what are you doing? Yeah, so there's a lot of confusion even in defining who's supposed to get this kind of education. But this is actually from the National Population Development Board. This is not a part of the school. So in school itself, they have their own textbook, although now it is much more comprehensive in a way that they explain on a certain family planning methods, but still the implementation of it, the teachers, whether or not they want to explain much further or not, and also there are some errors about gender-based violence that has been pointed out that was present in the textbook. So it is good that nowadays there's a lot more people who are outspoken about this, and we are there are some level of check and balance of, like, those who are in the nonprofit field. They always check or whatever is being put in the syllabus, but then it is far from comprehensive.
Yeah, so I can imagine that how the non-profits must be really contributing to something that the government should have taken care of themselves. But it's a shame that we have to keep a check of what kind of misconception and myths are being spread as awareness, like you said, in the on gender violence. And we, in fact, in our even in India, like, we have our medical textbooks, and they have such problematic notions of virginity for students, for medical students, and they have to study about virginity, these concepts, and gender-based violence as well. So
Wow.
just have these conversations, and now they're in fact reaching out to the authorities to ask that how can you publish all of this. So yeah, it's a process, but it's great that, like you said, we are moving towards that as well. So moving on to the next question, as you know that we are currently living under like a global pandemic, sort of getting out of it. Some countries have are in the phase of unlockdown, and like, so just to get an idea, what are the situation is like in Malaysia right now with regards to COVID, and like how has the government been handling the situation?
So for the situation of COVID now, it's so much better that the government has its way on handling things if the cases are spiking up again. So there are measures that being taken care of, and I think it is so much better compared to the start of the lockdown, where everything is shut down and the movements are super restricted. Even if you want to go to clinics, there are restriction of 10-kilometer radius on you can't go out from your identification address. So during that time, there's a lot of cases where people who are outside of the states who doesn't have a non-judgmental medical provider of safe abortion, they cannot come into the to Kuala Lumpur or PJ or Penang because of these restrictions, and it somehow inhibits them from getting the safe abortion services. But now, because we don't have that kind of restrictions anymore, so it's really, really good in terms of, you can commute around and you can get services. And even during the COVID-19, we feel a bit disappointed. We feel disappointed, not a bit. We feel disappointed with the government in terms of how they somehow they somehow neglect sexual reproductive health and rights, where the National Population Development Board, they closed their office from the start of the lockdown, and it continues until the end of the strict lockdown, where during this period from mid of March to end of May, the family planning clinics that were supposed to be under the provision of National Population Development Board is closed. Without any, they provide a hotline that they can call, but what can you do with a hotline? Yeah, so it somehow forces the people who go to this clinic, because they provide really low cost family planning services. So when this is restricted, they are asked to go and get services nearby their hometown, and you don't even know how much does it cost compared to the family planning clinic. Yeah, so it affected a lot.
This was absolutely. I mean, this was a trend. That's something that was common across, sort of countries like I mentioned before. That abortion rights or reproductive health services that sort of were completely sidelined and were affected more than even. It's not like they were earlier a big priority, but during this time it has been completely, because all of the health facilities and all of the existing services were already diverted to attending this COVID, this big thing that has come. So how is it? You explained a bit about how it has affected abortion, and what about other reproductive health services and choices that people have, like for example contraceptives? So was there any sort of shortage? Because this was also another, we see a lot of, because we're expecting a rise in unintended pregnancies after all of this ends, right? So a bit about that as well.
When the lockdown started, actually one of the head of the department in National Population Development Board, they had a press statement about how they expected a spike in pregnancies, like a baby boom in 2021. But what she mentioned is people can use emergency contraceptive as one of the method of not getting pregnant. And I think it is a missed opportunity that she only mentioned that, although that can be one of the emergency contraception, but what about, the entire 2 months and a half? Like, it's not going to be an emergency for the entire 2 months and a half. So it should be an opportunity for the department to, advocate on usage of long-term contraceptive and things like that. So, and for the entire sexual reproductive health services, because it's already restricted from the family planning, context, especially in abortion, like people don't even talk about abortion. Yeah. So, there are some efforts from the government. They have a certain apps. I think it's called Cafe Teen. But then once you open the apps, it starts talking about abstinence. That's one thing. Just you open the apps, you can see. The second thing is the department itself, they don't have any social media postings about sexual reproductive health and rights. The entire time we often, tag them when we post things online, but then there's no response from them even. So from that point, we kind of said like, okay, there's no conversation happening around sexual reproductive health and rights from the government side. We tried our best. There are also like some articles that has been written about it on the closure of LPPKN, the National Population Development Board. But then nothing is happening. So what FYKL and RAM does was we kind of created Sembang Malam Jumat, hashtag Sembang Malam Jumat, which is translated to night talks, Friday night talks, where we talk about sexual reproductive health and rights, we talk about COVID-19 and sex, and we talk about abortion, we talk about STIs, and we had a giveaway on menstrual cups giveaways. So yeah, that's basically what FICA has been doing, during the lockdown period, and that's what we can do so far.
So it's great to see, Farah, that the kind of work that you all are continuing to do and these night talks and whatever that you can do online in these times, I guess, because really with social distancing, that's all that we've got currently. So thank you so much for continuing the fight with all of the challenges that you have. So coming to that only, my next question is that just one of the challenges was that, most of our work has shifted online in terms of advocacy, and though it is great and more people can access it, but it doesn't have that sort of experience or that touch that the physically when you meet that you get, right? So moving forward, as you see this new world, this post-COVID world that's going to come up, what do you think that is going to look like? Do you see anything changing at all in terms of, we've really seen that if anything, feminist issues have sort of come at the forefront during this COVID, because a lot of organizations have, flagged this out, that we have completely ignored services. So it has sort of taken and, grabbed people's attention. So do you think that will, stay post-COVID as well? And can that be seen as a positive change? Or the fact that, online, for example, doctor consultation has become a very new thing that is coming up. So can that be also seen as a positive thing? So yeah, just the post-COVID world, how do you imagine it? And even for advocacy, how does it change things for us as well?
So moving forward, I think in Malaysia, there's pretty much still the same, I can say, because how to say, even though there are online communications happening, but in terms of if we want to advocate for certain issues, there are a lot more longer conversations that needs to happen. And sometimes online you can be you feel really, really tired. You just, there's so much things going on online. So it might have, benefits and also negative consequences to that. And I feel that's what we felt during the lockdown period. Although we kind of operate ourselves in a voluntary manner, we are actually a group and not necessarily a registered organization. We do it out of passion. So that's something that, it's a voluntary things that we do. So it somehow affected the way that we work because of, everything is shifted at home and everything is shifted online. And it affected our state of mind for some period of time. Yeah. So I think looking back, I think we can somehow learn from that, to prioritize our health, and try to schedule things according to our abilities and not necessarily, to fulfill the, key indicator or whatever. Yeah. So, but also online communications allow people from afar to contact us. There are a lot of questions coming in terms of, during the COVID period, also after the lockdown, there are conversations on basic conversations even about sexual reproductive health and rights. They are just casually asking, hey, they are not expecting automated answers. So yeah, so that what we can somehow give to the online audience. And I think that's one of the benefits of working online and putting the advocacy online. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yes, people have sort of online is now their solace, right, and answers to all of the questions as well. So yeah, I guess groups like FIIKL, if I'm not wrong, right? That's how it goes. Yeah.
Yes.
I always get confused if it's FYKIL, but then I remember it's Kuala Lumpur in the end. So yeah, just
That's good that you remember.
yeah. But great, thank you so much, Farah, for talking to us and sharing.
Thank you for having me.
And it was great to listen in to the kind of work that you're doing, and we're super, super excited. I know we're also talking with Sangeeta about a few other projects, and it's just all very, exciting and looking forward to. So thank you once again for joining us, and hope you have a great weekend. See you.
Okay, thank you so much.